All right, welcome back, everybody. I am State Senator John Cronin, and I want to thank you for joining me for episode 2 of Cronin's Corner. I want to give a big shout out to the crew here at FATV for making this show happen and their partnership. I'm excited about the episode today. We've got 2 great guests coming on. First, Jodi Breidel from Wheat Community Connections in Clinton. It is a food pantry and a whole lot more. And she's going to talk about the scope of her service organization and how they've reacted to the pandemic and really met some of the unmet needs in our community. And then second, we're going to be joined by State Representative, my good friend and colleague, Meg Kilcoyne, who, like me, was sworn into the State House and is a freshman. And today is actually our 100th day serving in the legislature. So we're going to get a great update, chance to meet Representative Kilcoyne and discuss some of what's going on Beacon Hill. But I'll start with just a brief legislative update, what's going on here in the community, what we're focused on in my office and Beacon Hill. And it really starts and ends with vaccine rollout. That has been our #1 priority, making sure that people in North Central Mass have access to the vaccine. On April 19th, the pool is going to widen for eligibility, and millions of more people in the Commonwealth are going to become eligible to receive the vaccine, whether it's Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. And so building out that infrastructure here in terms of delivery has been our #1 priority. It's been a slow and frustrating process and time for everybody, but we have made headway. And a few important updates. This week, the Baker-Polito administration approved a Neshoba Valley Regional Vaccination Clinic, and that is important. That is going to be at Devens, and that is going to be able to support more than 800 people a day getting doses. And that's another option for people in our community to go to get the vaccine at a place that's accessible for them. Progress continues on opening up the Kmart and local, state, and our partners in the delegation are working together to set up that infrastructure with the Montechusett Public Health Network. And finally, the Baker-Polito administration has partnered with an organization called Healthcare for All, and they are, as we speak, door-to-door canvassing in Fitchburg and Leominster to reach our vulnerable populations and make sure that people who are facing barriers to the vaccine, whether it be hesitancy, whether it be transportation, whether it be language, whether it be just not know where to go and how to get it. That is outreach that's going on in our communities right now, and to make sure that we're not leaving people behind. So I am excited about the progress that we're making. We've got a lot of hard work in front of us. But we've been working together. We've been speaking in North Central Mass with one voice to the Baker administration, and we have been making gains. And so I'm optimistic as we head into the spring, into the summer, that we're going to be bringing everybody along with us and making sure that we've got an equitable access to the vaccine. The second thing I'd like to talk about is an exciting announcement that came from the House Ways and Means and the Senate Ways and Means chairs last week, and that is that the legislature has committed to fully fund the Student Opportunity Act. So the Student Opportunity Act was passed in 2019, and it reformed an antiquated Chapter 70 funding formula. And what that means for our gateway cities, Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, and our communities, is that we are going to see an increase in millions and millions of dollars to our Chapter 70 funding. And the state is going to meet its commitment that it made in the Student Opportunity Act to roll out $1.3 billion in increased funding over 7 years. The first year of that schedule was put on pause because of the pandemic. But we are getting back on track this year and with this year's budget. And I'm really excited about that. And again, that is a big deal for Fitchburg and Leominster and Gardner and every gateway city here in Massachusetts. And it's going to mean millions of dollars of more funding. So I'm excited about that. The work continues. We're going to make sure that gets into the House budget and then passed on to us in the Senate. And I know the Senate, that is a huge priority for us to meet our commitment for that funding. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the budget collection. So we have received over $8 billion here in Massachusetts in state and local aid from the federal partners, and specifically the American Rescue Plan. That is really, really important. So we have an opportunity here to make really smart investments in our infrastructure, in our young people workforce development that I truly believe is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. And what does that mean for the Worcester and Middlesex District and the 11 cities and towns that I represent? It's $78 million in local aid that is not baked into the state budget. It's not baked into our municipal, local cities and towns budgets. I mean, that is one-time aid from the feds that is going to help us recover and build back better as we move out of the COVID-19 pandemic. So those are conversations that local, state, and federal partners are having right now. What is the best use of that money? But it is an exciting time, I think, to have the resources that we need to build back better and come out of this stronger than we were. So that's exciting. And then this week, I joined my partners in the legislature, Mayors Nicholson and Gardner, Representatives Lotnick and Gardner, Mayor Dean Natale and Rep. Kushmerek, and tons of other community partners to welcome Secretary Mike Keneally from the Office of Housing and Economic Development. What we talked about was really bringing back our downtowns and making sure that we're providing adequate support for our small businesses. We had great walking tours of downtown Gardner, downtown Fitchburg, and I know the Secretary went on to downtown Leominster as well. So we're working close with the Baker administration, especially with an eye toward how we direct state grant programs and funding to make sure that we're making really smart investments in ourselves, in our downtowns, supporting our small businesses, and making sure that we are best positioned to come out of this pandemic stronger than we've ever been. All right, now I am really privileged to be joined by my next guest, Jodi Breidel, with Wheat Community Connections in Clinton. And Jodi, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for your time today and coming on to have this conversation with us.
Thank you for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about just Wheat, its history, how the organization was started, and how it's come to be where it is today?
Sure. Wheat Community Connections was started back in 1982, and it was formed by two concerned nurses at the Clinton Hospital at the time when manufacturing companies were closing up. And so they were faced with not only the health needs of people coming to them, but also they were finding that their basic needs weren't even being met within the community. So they formed a 501c3 and they put out a contest alert for a name for the organization, and they came up with WHEAT, which actually stands for Wachusett Health Education Action Team. So throughout the years, we've always been located in Clinton, and we're currently located at 272 High Street, and we've ebbed and flowed with programs and services based upon the community needs throughout the year, and also based upon the economic status and the financial viability of our organization to meet those needs.
And how big is the organization? How many employees do you have, and either full-time and then coming to volunteer? I know I've been to visit a few times. This is a busy place.
It's a busy place. We're small but mighty in terms of staffing. We have 2 full-time staff members and 7 part-time staff members, and we're backed up by that with nearly 2,000 volunteers that came through for us since last March.
That's pretty remarkable.
It's unbelievable. I mean, people had an opportunity during the pandemic to volunteer because they were either working from home, their hours had been reduced, or they were unemployed, quite frankly, and they just wanted to give back, and we were able to support their desire, and they were able to meet our needs. So it was really phenomenal.
And I know we've had conversations before when I've been to visit, but the way that your organization scaled to meet the increase in the need for food insecurity is pretty remarkable. Can you talk about just the scope of your operations, maybe in last February compared to where they were at the peak when you were really in this fight against food insecurity during the pandemic?
Sure. It's almost as if we didn't exist any other way now because it's gone so long, and we're never going back to that way. But we had our food programs, which consisted of a food pantry and also a community cafe that fed community members Monday through Friday. And we quickly pivoted to a food program that was a lunch delivery system, breakfast and lunch delivery system, and pick up pretty much throughout the day for folks who are hungry. We instituted a program that really met the needs of the seniors and veterans and disabled, and focused on the housing authorities to make sure that people were able to access food even though they weren't able to really get out and get the food themselves, or were afraid to because of the pandemic.
And I know that's one of the hardest things specifically about how the pandemic has affected our seniors too, is just isolation. And one thing I saw is that the relationships that you and your volunteers had built with those seniors, and for a lot of them for a long time during the summer or over the past 12 months, maybe the only person that they were seeing or interacting with was from your organization, and that interaction dropping off meals. So I just think that was so powerful, and another service that Wheat was providing the community.
Just a little tidbit too, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No.
we had only served about 10,900 meals at the point in February when the pandemic came along. At the close of February of this year, we had served 65,000 meals. So it's
Did you sleep at all in the past 12 months?
I did sleep, and I went to sleep feeling great, knowing that we were able to pivot like we were and get the support from everybody to make it happen. So, and I don't see it going back to 10,000 meals. I think the whole experience of the pandemic has forced us to really dig deeper and look at what people need during the best and the worst times, and where do we sit in the middle so that we're prepared to go where we need to go. And that's how we've been fine-tuning everything that we do over the last year and a half, is on the premise that we want to make sure that we're able to do the same thing, act very quickly, not shut down,
Yep.
and not shut people out from getting the programs and services they need.
And you're located in High Street in Clinton, but your service area is much bigger than that. And I mean, you guys are really a regional resource. Can you talk about just some of your presence in other cities and towns in the region?
Sure. We have traditionally served residents of Berlin, Bolton, Clinton, Lancaster, and Sterling. But since the pandemic, and because other pantries and social service agencies didn't have the capacity to stay open or became very limited in their capacity to help people, we opened our doors to everyone. So we see people from Leominster, Fitchburg, Lunenburg, Stowe, Worcester, West Boylston, Boylston, Hubbardston. I mean, people are coming. Yeah, whoever needs our services, we're letting them come through and access those services. We also have a thrift store that was closed down for 4 months, but the thrift store doesn't only provide low-cost goods, we also provide vouchers to people who need those items coming through the store, the basic clothing and furniture and things like that. So that's been helpful. Our case management to help people migrate unemployment benefits, Social Security, the food stamp and SNAP applications. It's just, we've seen a huge increase in the number of people coming to us.
And I think especially as we're moving into the spring and summer and out of the pandemic, now is as good a time as any to just turn around and again, how you've scaled from 10,000 meals a year to 65,000 over the past 12 months. That is a pretty just remarkable example your whole organization, the whole community coming to one, recognize, and two, meet again that unmet need for food insecurity. But is there a moment over the past 12 months, or a story, or a person who highlights that, recognizing and meeting the moment and stepping up?
There's been several moments,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest with you. It goes from the extreme to the mother of 5 children, who is homeschooling now, faced with homeschooling in an environment where she was already struggling.
Yeah.
She worked full time while the kids were in school, and now she had to, not go to work and be displaced out of work and be home with the kids and handle that kind of profession that she wasn't, educationally taught to perform under all the stress.
Yeah.
Coming into, or even further along to, every time we're giving out food for people and having them just burst into tears because they just so grateful. Having a community come together when we did 2 fly by the seat of our pants drive-through events.
Yep.
That we were able to get extra donations for Easter, and we put together an Easter drive-through, and we had over 150 people volunteer to make it happen, and we had over 700 cars go through with their kids in the car, masks on, rolling down their window and popping the back of their cars to have some stuff in them. It is amazing what people will do during these times, and I'm just thankful that I get to be a part of that and be the conduit for it. Really, that's all I am, is a conduit for everybody else's goodness. It just filters through.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And for people who are at home watching right now, how can they support your mission? How can they contribute? How can they volunteer? How can they connect with Wheat?
Sure. So you can make a financial donation online at www.uwotc.org/.
We'll put it up on the screen.
Put it up on the screen, please. You can volunteer. Time is money, and you see how much we're able to do with the number of volunteers that get involved. You can run a food drive and provide food for our food pantry. You can donate items to our thrift store, since all of those proceeds go into our food programs. You can help promote Wheat and tell people are struggling, who may be apprehensive, but you have a relationship with, to come and meet with us. It's all confidential. It's super friendly, and I'm not just biased. We've tried to make it a very welcoming and warm environment, and so we want people to feel like you can just walk in and out of our place, and you are welcome no matter what. So those are just some of the ways you can get involved.
Well, thank you so much. There are a lot of unsung heroes who have stepped up in the community and the region over the past 12 months, and you are certainly one of them. And I just want to thank you for all the work, truly God's work that Wheat has done over the past 12 months, and look forward to getting out there to High Street in Clinton and seeing you soon.
We'll see you next week.
That's right. Yeah, I'll be out with Representative Kilcoyne. So
yes.
Looking forward to visiting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, before we introduce our next guest, I'd like to just remind everybody at home how you can contact my offices. One of the things we're most proud of is our work for constituent services. My constituent service director, Jacob Simopoulos, is working every day to serve the people who reach out. So whether it's unemployment, an issue with a state agency, mass health, an RMV issue, please contact our office. You can reach me. My email is john.cronin@masenate.gov, or call our office directly at 617-722-1230. And now it's my privilege to be joined by my good friend and colleague in the legislature, State Representative Meghan Kilcoyne. Representative, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me, Senator. Happy to be here.
No, it's great. So today, for both of us, marks 100 days in office. It was 100 days ago that we both got sworn in. We're part of the same freshman class. How's your first 100 days been?
I mean, it's been a whirlwind. It's surreal to hear you say that because it feels like it was just yesterday we were getting sworn in. And so it's, I think you probably had the same experience I did, that we were thrown into this pool of this legislative world. And I think what's been unique about it is that we started this, in the middle of a pandemic where this entire governance, how we govern, was shifted almost solely remotely. So I think that it's been a really exciting time. And I think, I've been very grateful to have colleagues such as yourself on the other chamber to help navigate this new normal and try to help as many people as we can. I'm sure your office as well as mine, we've had a lot of people reach out to us looking for help, whether it be unemployment issues or concern about the vaccines. I think, I haven't seen the number, but I think we've had at least over 100 constituent cases, which I'm sure yours is even larger given the wider area that you serve. And then on top of that, making sure that we're doing our due diligence, from a legislative perspective. We work in a very deliberative body, and so you always want to take the time to look at things carefully, but in a crisis, you also have to be sure you're nimble enough to move swiftly. So we were able to, I think, both of us in different chambers took votes on things such as critical climate legislation, on legislation aimed at trying to offer support to small businesses and those that had lost their jobs, and the work continues. So it's been a very, I think, unique 100 days for anybody in office, but an especially exciting time for me. And it's not to say it was without challenges, but I feel every day, we're always able to move forward, whether it's helping a constituent, answering a question, or trying to move some broader goals forward. And I'm really excited and proud of the work that we've done, and I'm really excited to go for the next 100 days and the 100 days after that as we really start to dig into some more serious issues affecting the Commonwealth. So,
and both of us are so privileged because we represent in the legislature the towns and the places where we grew up, where we went to school.
I, was very lucky to grow up in this region. So my family all came from Clinton. So my grandparents all lived there. My parents grew up there. Their grandparents lived there. So, it was literally my family came off the boat from Ireland, settled in Clinton, stayed there for a few generations. I was raised in Sterling, so my parents moved there in the 80s. So I went to public schools there, graduated from Wachusett Regional. And then in college, I had gone to Stonehill College in Easton, which I loved, studied history. I was just open to any experience that I could find. And my predecessor, Representative Harold Naughton, met me at an event in I think it's the spring before I graduated, and said, "Hey, come intern." And I did. And while I had studied politics in school, working in a legislative office really was the first time I saw how it impacts the way we live and how it really impacts us on a local level. By 2011, I was working almost primarily on policy. So over the 10 years, I had really, I loved being behind the scenes. I loved having a chance to sort of dip my feet in both statewide and local issues. I also found as I got older, as I became more confident that in myself and my abilities, that I had a voice that I wanted to use, and I had a voice that could help people if I chose to use it, especially about the community that I grew up in and that my family was from. So.
Can you talk a little bit about just the difference for you from being a staffer for 10 years and then taking your hand off the Bible and you're the representative now? What has that transition been like?
Yeah, I mean, I think to the point you made earlier, I'm very grateful to sort of just have the experience that I had of knowing who to call, knowing just, the technical aspects of the job. One thing though that did take me by surprise is that when you're a staffer, you're not the ones making the decision. You never have the final call off anything. When you're the elected though, the buck stops with you.
What are your goals for your freshman term? What would you like to advocate for to get accomplished in the next 2 years?
I've always tried to keep my goals both realistic and local, because we had there was such a unique last year in the legislature. I mean, we were busy, trying to get elected, but they all had really big policy proposals that they were working on up until the last minute. The whole legislative cycle was sort of turned upside down because of the pandemic. And so for me, as a result of that, there's a few local pieces that were sort of percolating last session that we have to deal with now. And so I really feel that's important for me to focus on getting those things done, getting those accomplished. And given the way in which we came into the job, where we still are in such a unique time in our lifetimes, that sort of swallowed up a lot of other
the
policies.
Oxygen, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I always try to sort of keep it, get sort of our business and housekeeping done, get through the pandemic, and really make sure we're taking the time to learn from that and help that inform policy moving forward, if hopefully we get to the next year in a maybe more normal world that we live in. And maybe we won't be, I don't know, but I think it's just taking it one day at a time.
Looking back over the past 100 days, do you have a moment or a story that made you grateful for the job that you're in right now?
I think so. I want to just also, I'm very grateful that both of us had the experience of being able to be sworn in the State House.
Yeah.
You were outside, I believe, correct?
And this is for everybody, this is January 6th,
Yes.
2021.
Yes, which was a surreal day for the entire country, which we didn't know until later. But, I'd worked in the State House. I'd been in that building, and I was walking in the halls with some of my new colleagues to go to the chamber to get sworn in. We got sworn in, the House got sworn in the actual House chamber with a very limited amount of people, all socially distanced, but we had to be there for constitutional reasons.
Yeah.
So some of my new colleagues were getting a little emotional seeing sort of this really old building that was so symbolic for so many of
It's a remarkable chamber.
Yeah,
like
no,
it really
totally
is. Yeah.
I wasn't really feeling that way though, because I'd walked these halls before.
Yeah.
I had been in this building, and so I just remember going up the staircase, and I walk into the chamber, and I look up and I see my name on the wall, and that's when it hit me that this was really happening. And I almost started crying because it had been this culmination of almost months of work and effort, and it wasn't until that moment when I saw my name, and then the court officer, as you go in, the court officers are there to sort of be the security of the chamber. He said, "Hello, representative," and handed me my little pin that you can't see right here that's covered up by the mic. But and it just hit me that I was the representative. And kind of going back to what I said before, that's when I knew, okay, like I am the representative now.
The buck stops here.
Yeah, and I should say too, we were still doing work for Representative Naughton. He was such a dedicated servant. He was working up until midnight that night. And so we were trying to I was back to staff mode after I won. So literally I went from kind of doing the work, trying to make sure we were keeping that work going, and then getting sworn in the next day. So I think I needed that moment to feel like it had really happened, that I really was the elected state representative of the 12th Worcester District. So it was a very special moment that unfortunately I think got swallowed up by the tragedy that happened at the Capitol.
Yeah.
But looking back, I think that having, swearing an oath to the Commonwealth, to our people that we serve and the Constitution, was just a more reminder than ever how grateful I am that we live in a country where normal democracy can prevail, and how precious that is, and how much we have to work to protect it. So.
And I think I remember swearing the oath. It's a reminder, and it's important that you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself right now.
Totally.
And a lot of people are counting on you. So no, I love that story, and I appreciate you sharing it. And I just want to thank you for coming on Cronin's Corner. I don't know if we're going to get canceled after this season, but you can always say that you were there on episode 2, and really appreciated our conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. I always, love talking with my colleagues, and I'm looking forward to working with you. And no, this was great. And thank you so much.
Okay, and to everybody at home, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next month, and joined by probably another member of the local delegation and another community leader. So look forward to that. Until then, please stay safe and be well. Thank you.